Leadership language is recorded on the beautiful lands of the Ngunnawal people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. We acknowledge the first Australians as the traditional custodians of our beautiful continent and recognise their cultures as being amongst the oldest living cultures in human history. Welcome to Leadership Language. We've created this podcast series to bring you inspiring conversations with a broad range of leaders about the power of communication. We talk candidly to our guests about leadership styles, success, moments of learning, the uncomfortable situations, and courageous conversations that follow. Importantly, we discuss self-awareness and how vital it is for our future success. This week, our Managing Director, Sheena Ireland, speaks with Rachelle Towart. Rachelle is a Medal of the Order of Australia recipient, was named an Australian Financial Review Woman of Influence, and was recently named Canberra's Indigenous Business Woman of the Year. Rachelle is a proud Wonnarua woman. She has elevated awareness and the importance of Indigenous leadership and governance capacity to the national stage through her business, Pipeline Talent. With Rachelle at its helm, Pipeline Talent has cemented itself as a highly regarded and respected Indigenous recruitment company. Rachelle's vision for the company is to be recognised nationally and internationally as a catalyst for unlocking the talent and career potential of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Grab a cuppa, sit back and learn more about the leadership language of Rachelle Towart.
You have a long career in leadership. And I just want to start by asking what helped shape this focus on leadership and communication for you?
It really started when I left the public service back in 2004. And I really do call myself an accidental CEO at the time of moving into the Leadership Centre. I was very naive when I started. I thought that I applied for this job at the Australian Indigenous Leadership Centre, and I actually thought it was a government role. So my dad moved us here to Canberra to become public servants, or there's another story behind that, but we didn't have enough petrol money to get us to Melbourne where we were originally going. So he changed the story to that we were moving to Canberra to become public servants. And so going to have to tell my dad that I was leaving the public service and taking a 12-month transfer, knowing that I could possibly come back to work in government if things didn't work out. And I think I was about 3 months in when I realised that I had made the decision the best decision of my life career-wise, to take the leap of faith and leave the public service and go and work for an organisation that I'm so still immensely proud of, in that we were the only organisation in Australia providing accredited Indigenous leadership training across the country. So we had some, I went through 2 CEOs, and at the next point of that there was about $14,000 in the bank, and Professor Mick Dodson, who was the chairman at the time, said, "Hey Rachelle, there's this much money left in the bank. Do you want to have a crack?" And I jumped at the chance to take it on, because it was so worth saving. When I saw 70% of our alumni going on to get between a 13 and 15% pay increase when completing the program. Haven't said the numbers out loud for a while. So, but we knew that 70% went on to get a further wage increase, and we knew that for some it was their first ever educational qualification. So we knew that we were making a really big difference and impact, and leadership from that point on meant something real to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's really hard to walk the talk of leadership and to be a really good role model. So I learned from some of the best, and I was able to, because of the position that I held, able to get some really amazing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders and non-Indigenous leaders into the fold of learning what leadership meant. for them and then what it meant for me. And one of my first things that I did when I knew that we needed some more money in the bank, and I rang Gail Kelly when she was the CEO of Westpac and wrote to her, I didn't ring her. I said, "Dear Auntie Gail, I'd like to have lunch with you and a couple of your rich friends over for lunch." And, we made an absolute mozza amount of money that was able to put us back on track, and never looked back from that since. So, yeah, it was, you win awards, and one of my favourite awards that I've won was the Westpac Community Leader Award, the inaugural one, because the following year they put me as their advertising girl. And so I was on every Westpac ATM, I was on a side of a bus, I was on a billboards in Perth, and my 7-year-old niece at the time said to me, "Why, Auntie Rachelle, are you giving people money?" Because I was on the bank. She just didn't quite get it. But at the time, my 90-year-old grandmother took her first selfie in front of the ATM with me being behind it. So that was pretty special. But the award that I've won for just recently with the Canberra Women in Business was ultra special, because I was working and doing things for a business. And yes, I'm absolutely proud of my successes there, but it means something more when you have your own business. And I mean, it's only 4 years young, and that's a really great achievement. Yes. I get that, but when you're doing it for your own business and your own family, it just means so much more.
So much courage in that too, and I guess the tenacity when you do have your own business sometimes is, more tenacity than you've ever raised within yourself.
Yeah, it's not what I thought it would be. Absolutely not what I thought it would be. I have a 25-year-old daughter, and 4 months into the business, I took on another baby, and at the time he was 4 months old. He's now 4. He's going to preschool next year, so I'm learning how to be a parent again. I forgot the preschool enrolment. And then I filled in all the paperwork and got everything happening. And then they sent me a letter and said, "Come to induction." So I went to induction without the child. So luckily, they've forgiven me. And I'm taking Sean back with me next week. We'll try again for another orientation, because I thought it was just about me. Apparently not. It's about the preschooler as well. So
always learning, aren't we?
Yeah, and sometimes it's difficult. I turn 50 next year, and I'm probably one of the older parents definitely am one of the older parents. Not in the mother's club when I had my daughter, not in the mother's club, not knowing what's going on and what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. And yeah, completely almost missed the enrollment. And my husband is absolutely very supportive of me and the boys, and yeah. Our daughter Caitlin lives at home with us, so she's a big help with our boys. We wouldn't be able to do it without her. So, yeah, as much as the award has got my name on it, it's just as important for the boys and for Mark and Caitlin to recognise their support to me.
Yeah. It's such a journey in business, and such a thing about leadership, I guess, as well, is that it's not just, sometimes it can appear like it's just one person, but, it is that whole community. What is it? The village to raise a child, the village to raise a business, all of those things.
Absolute village. You've got to use the connections that you have to make business work. And did I think business would be what it is? Probably not. But I'm getting bigger and better, and we're just about to have 7 team members, so that's exciting. So the office is a bit of a crazy mess at the moment, doing Kanbans and things like that on whiteboards, and getting more desks. And this morning we had the removalist truck out to come and take out a big office desk, and so we can have more smaller desks for staff members. So it's a big, you're just buying 4 new computers, getting them all set up. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And one of the things that strikes me that you said before was almost about, being empowered and enabled to do this. And it sounds like that's helped you navigate business journey as well, is having those connections, having people around you who've empowered you. And something I've heard you say a lot, and something that I've read in a lot of your interviews, is around, your passion and your drive for enabling people, preparing them and empowering them. And I think that is just so amazing and shows true leadership. Do you want to talk more about that?
So the journey of how Pipeline was created was simply reading, sitting on a plane ride over to Western Australia, reading their in-flight magazine, and I was fortunate enough for them to do a story on me in this magazine. And I was reading this article. I'm sitting in row 30 next to the toilet, so it's not it's not a glamour. I'm in your magazine, Mr. Joyce, and you don't even put me up at least row 5. That would be good. But turned the page and started reading this article about women in the pipeline and how women were increasing their numbers in corporate, community, and government, but obviously still a way to go. And thought, if I replace the word woman with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, where would the numbers sit? And it was very evident that there was no C-suite in the ASX 500, no board members in the ASX 500, less than 25 at the time for the Australian Public Service. And the state governments, they've got some statutory authority people, but no real, even secretaries of State Department, the 26 agencies of the Northern Territory government, not one of them headed by an Aboriginal person. Wow. That has changed today. They've got their first Attorney General, so that I'm really happy about that. And that was the decision maker of starting the business of Pipeline Talent. I knew that there was talent out there working with the Leadership Centre, and knowing that there were Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people across the country that have amazing skills and should be doing these jobs. So waking up the next day and going, I'm going to become a recruiter, and an executive recruiter at that, I'm competing against those that have been in this business forever, and me, a newbie. But every question that I would ask about recruitment would always come back and say that the recruitment system is broken. However, we continue to do it the same way over and over again. And I had to unpack the reasons why Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people weren't in the positions that they should be in. That they're in middle to entry level, middle management, some at some senior management, none really at that C-suite level. There are a few, don't get me wrong. And I apologise if those are listening and you are in these roles, but we need more. So I had to go out and say, why don't we have them? And one of the big reasons was, and I'm using the inverted commas with my fingers that you can see me using, this thing called real feedback that was given to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in their work. So if somebody is not so crash hot at policy, they need to be told that they're not so crash hot at policy. Or if they're not so great with numbers, they need to be told this. And people can't be afraid of saying that they're not so great at that, whatever the task might be, or and also give them encouragement of, yes, you're really good at this. We can work on this little bit, and this is how we grow people. But what was happening is that managers and supervisors, because if we go back in the days of Bob Hawke, when he was in power, 30% of his income was spent on learning and development for staff. So there was this great generation of people leaders that were created. Mm-hmm. Then after Hawke, there was Keating, and he went, I think the numbers are right, I could be completely wrong, but we'll go from 30 to 5, and then Howard, it was 5 to 3 to none. And so it's the first thing that normally goes from anybody's training, anybody's income, is the training bucket. I believe that it's the first thing that should be continued. Because learning and development creates, and particularly people leadership. And so I'd ask the people who are listening to this podcast, when was the last time you did people leadership training of any description? Because for me, that is so critical to grow the next generation of leaders, is to have really good role models who are doing really great people leadership. And for me, it is absolutely key to getting people to the next level. Having that people leadership, having great people who are not afraid to do good performance management, is going to get people to the next level and the next level, and they're going to keep growing and they're going to keep climbing the ladder of success. So we implemented, as part of our placement fee, if you like, that people get their first 100 days coaching as part of their placement, because there are some people that do a lot of dump and runs. The dump and run stuff really just frustrates me as a recruiter. It was absolutely one of the things that I've seen, that people come in and they charge, anywhere from 18 to 25 and more % of the TRP for first year of service. So that could be nearly a recruiter making $50,000 on a job, which is wonderful if people want to get that, but they then just leave them and they say, see you later, and I'm going to then recycle you in 2 or 3 years' time so I can put you up for another job. For me, that just doesn't work. So we work with the hiring manager. We talk to them about how do they give them real feedback so that they know what their strengths and weaknesses are throughout the recruitment process, that we can get the best out of them. So working on their 100-day plan even before they start. Some may not have been in an executive role before it, so it might be a new thing. We don't want them to walk in and blow up the world. We want them to use the most important skill on your first day, and that is listening and having lots of conversations about what's the world look like in their new place of employment. And so we've tried to do things really different. None of my team are do have a recruitment background, and I really like that.
It's very refreshing to hear, actually. And I know it shouldn't be refreshing. I feel like a lot of the stuff you're saying now is we want that to be the normal. We want that follow through. We want those good leadership skills. We want that good listening, that good feedback. One of the things we talk about a lot is in particular around those courageous conversations like you were talking about, but a lot of people don't have them because they feel uncomfortable.
And particularly with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, there's so much of that bias stuff that goes on around. If I say something to an individual about their work performance, I'm going to be considered a racist. No, we're talking about work performance, and we're talking about people skills, and we're talking about people leadership. I cannot stress to you how much that is just my biggest bugbear around people's hesitation of providing feedback about work. We're not coming in to talk about, there'll be lots of conversations over the coming days of who won Queensland or New South Wales in the rugby league, and how do you think the coach is going to give them feedback about their performance? Do you think that those players on the field are going to get feedback that is racist? No. No. So I think we just need to take it from a different angle. We're coaching people to be the best that they can. And so the other part of the business that we do is we offer career coaching around leadership to lots of people around the country. So we've got the capacity to do that. And we also do board appointments. So anybody who's looking for board appointments to have some real diversity on their boards, it's great that we've got now women, but let's see some Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people on their boards. I think there was an article written about Aboriginal people not being in the ASX in the C-suites. It's 12 months on. That number has not changed. The Indigenous procurement policy has certainly opened opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander businesses. I sit on the Supply Nations Indigenous Advisory Group, and it's a really exciting time for Aboriginal businesses to be putting themselves out there to say, hey, give us a crack. You're going to get more from us because there's so many more expectations on us to provide you with an amazing service so that you will continue to work with Aboriginal businesses and build that pipeline of opportunity and talent. I mean, I'm really lucky. I sit with Broad Spectrum, and they are another business that is kicking some big goals around the country that have the commitment and the dedication of working in their Indigenous procurement policy and their employment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. It's not just tokenistic it's real.
Yeah.
And that's the type of opportunity that we're looking for, the real ones.
Yeah. There is so much about bringing your whole self to work. When we do that, we can learn about each other and, of course, learn about Indigenous culture from each individual that is able to bring the whole self to work. So, yeah, there's skills and there's fit, but there's bringing your whole self, and then we can really, truly learn and learn about difference and appreciate difference.
There's been some awful stories that I hear about, Aboriginal staff. We do a lot of consultancy and research, and we're asking people about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people about when was the last time that they perceived to witness racism within the workplace. And a lot of them looked at their watch and goes, 20 minutes ago.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
And that is really heartbreaking. You don't look Aboriginal. What percentage are you?
Wow.
There's two things in the world that I know is that you either are Aboriginal or you're not Aboriginal. So I am. And, it's probably one of the most offensive things of being an Aboriginal person that you get asked, what percentage are you? Or you don't look Aboriginal. But I assure you that I am. Oh, when was the last time you went home to your community? Well, I go home every night.
Yes. And what you highlight there, I think, is something really important, because we do talk about courageous conversations. We talk about the willingness of people to ask questions, to learn and to listen. But that doesn't mean asking every question, because we all have a role and responsibility. And I know myself, particularly as a white Australian, my responsibility to do my own research and learn as much as I can. And yes, that can involve questions, but making it my responsibility to learn and be respectful in every conversation.
Yeah, there's a way to ask, where does your Aboriginality come from? I can say that is from my grandfather. And, everybody has a story. Everybody has something that is personal to them. Yeah. Whether you're Aboriginal or you're not Aboriginal, everybody has a story.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we're in competition for anybody's beat. I'm not afraid to share my story. Yeah. And, I hope that I can teach that now to the boys, to raise them as really awesome young dudes.
Look at where you are holding your biases. Look at where you can look for, people from Indigenous backgrounds. Look at where you can really diversify your organisation, because it only benefits everybody. And and bringing your whole self to work, I think, is also just an amazing thing. We get such a diversification of the workforce, and it benefits absolutely everybody.
Yeah, imagine if you got everybody to bring a dish of food.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to buy it because I really can't cook.
Imagine the diversity just on a table if everybody brought a plate to work.
Rachelle, I love hearing your passion, your drive, your tenacity over such a long career, and I'm sure so much more to go. And I hope you're going to have all of those, extra results, and I just know you will. For anyone coming up into leadership now, what would your advice be?
Have a go. Don't be scared about it. Give me a call. I'm happy to walk you through it, because it is scary, particularly, starting your own business. That is a scary thing. And people always ask me my coaching sessions around what advice would you give? And I say, take it slowly. I didn't really rush into it, but I had security that was financial. So I sat on a board that was a remunerated board. So I knew that I had enough money to come in and, pay the bills. And that was good. But some people don't have that opportunity. So I would say, even if you just go down from a 10-day fortnight to a 9-day fortnight, then go from a 9-day fortnight to an 8-day fortnight, and really start to see the change of that opportunity. And then you can start going, okay, I've got consistent work. It's not as scary. I know that I've got guaranteed work, but you've got to walk the talk. You've got to promise on what you say you're going to do. You deliver on what you're going to do, because you're only as good as your last job. And that's what I am. I'm only as good as my last job. So we work really hard to provide people with the best person they can possibly have that fits with their requirements and the individual's requirements. So that's probably my biggest advice is, and the song, I think I sung it on one interview that I did with the radio the other week. You get knocked down, but you get up again, and it's what you learn on the way back up, because you've got to keep on getting up, keep on getting back up. And, it was a really scary thing taking on my first baby, but then the second baby come along, that was even scarier. And I thought that the whole world was just going to come crashing down on me. But I got back up again, and I got back up again, and I got back up again. And I will continue to get back up, because I need to show these guys that there is an Aboriginal recruitment company, that when you think about recruitment, you won't just think of me as an Aboriginal business, you'll think of me as an Australian business who wants to see the best for Australia, and that is to have diversity in their workforce.
Love that, Rachelle. You've been so generous with all of your information today, and so generous with your advice, and I love that ending. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing everything and for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for our Leadership Language podcast. We hope you've been inspired by Rachelle's story and perhaps gained some new ideas on how to refine and improve your own leadership style. Until next time.